Hello. So today I'm watching vitellie types of kids on the school bus. Okay.
Imagine a place with no laws, where it's always either too hot or too cold, and it smells worse than the inside of your retainer case. Now you may think the place I'm describing is Waffle House, but no, because the place I'm talking about is the school bus. The school bus is one of the wildest places I've ever been, and I've gone Black Friday shopping in Compton, so that's saying something. And I don't mean the school bus is wild in a fun way, I mean that it's wild in a there are no rules here, and we're all just trying to survive until we get to school type of way. Because the school bus was supposed to be simple. You get on, you sit down, and they drive you to school. But this whole idea fell apart for one reason and one reason only, which is the students on the bus. But before we even get into the actual people, let's talk about the experience of getting on the bus. You wake up in the morning absolutely miserable because you only had like 5 hours of sleep. You get ready and then it happens. The school bus pulls up to your house. First thing you notice when you step on that bus, the smell. The smell was impossible to identify, but the best way I could describe it was your dad's underwear after a full day of work. Not that I would know what that smells like. Anyways, the reason this scent was so strong was because the windows were always shut in here. So the body odor of 20 teenagers that were still discovering the concept of a shower was trapped inside this tin box. And this led to the next problem, which was the temperature. This might be a personal thing, but it was always either so hot that the kids next to you are passing out. That's not a joke, by the way. That actually happened when I was on the bus. Or it was so cold, you couldn't feel your fingers by the time your bus got to school. There was never an in-between. And the seats had no comfort to them at all. I'm pretty sure the reason my posture looks like this is because I'd always sit in the bus slouching down just so I could be comfortable. It's like the people who created school buses had a big meeting together and they were just like,
okay, how can we make this experience as miserable as possible?
Oh, I have an idea.
Yeah, chopped guy, what do you have?
How about no air conditioning or heating?
No air conditioning or heating at 7 a.m.?
I don't think we have heat.
Oh, I have one.
Yeah, cross-eyed dude, what's up?
How about we put windows on the bus, but don't allow the students to open them?
Dude, that is evil. I love it.
So you've got a smelly bus, a temperature that is always wrong, and seats designed by someone who has never sat down before in their life. And then you fill it with 30 kids, and what happens? I've got a new video topic. Now I lied at the beginning of this video when I said the bus had no rules, because it did have one. And this rule was about where you sat on the bus. Because the bus was split into three sections. The front, the middle, and the back. And based on where you sat, everybody on that bus already knew exactly what type of person you were. Let's start at the front. The front of the bus was for one type of person and one type only. The teacher's pet. Because what other reason would you have for wanting to sit as close as possible to the driver? If you sit literally anywhere else on the bus, the driver won't be able to hear what you say or do, which means you could do whatever you want. But here's the thing about front of the bus kids. They didn't just sit there quietly being good. They didn't just sit there because they were homies with the driver and talked about sports or movies with them. No, they had a purpose for sitting up there, and that purpose was to be the lookout. Now, of course, since the bus driver has to focus on, well, driving, he doesn't have the time to pay attention to every single kid and make sure they're behaving. So the front of the bus kids would take it upon themselves to do this for them. Now you may be wondering, did the driver ask the kids to do this? No, they probably couldn't care less, to be honest. Because I was on a bus one time and the lookout kid tapped the driver on the shoulder and said,
Mr. Roberts, there's kids fighting back there.
And because the bus has that big honking mirror at the front of it, I could see the driver's face. And when this kid snitched on the people in the back, the bus driver literally just rolled his eyes as if he was tired of this kid snitching on everyone. The kid would do this over literally anything too. Like, he had the rows of seats memorized.
Kids in row 10 are throwing food on the ground.
And no, hey, I respect the passion that these front of the bus kids had, but maybe they should have put that passion towards something more useful, like cranking 90s and Fortnite. That's what I was passionate about at the time. Now that I think about it, my passion was pretty useless too, actually. I genuinely felt bad for the front of the bus kids though, because the one on my bus was just trying to behave. He wasn't actually doing anything wrong, but because he'd snitch on other students, some of the people on the bus would mess with him. Like, there were times where he'd get a grape thrown at him and turn around like this. Who did that? But right behind this row of kids that are snitching on your every move was the kids in the middle of the bus. The middle of the bus was where the NPCs lived. And before anyone gets upset because I called you an NPC, I myself sat in the middle of the bus for most of my life. So I would know. It's not an insult, this is just the truth. But I'm not calling us middle of the bus kids NPCs because we didn't have any personality or anything like that. No, I'm calling us NPCs because compared to the rest of the psychopaths in this bus, we were just the normal kids. We would just get on the bus, sit down, maybe talk to whoever was next to us, look out the window. We weren't causing any problems and we weren't snitching on the people who were. We were simply on that bus because we needed a way to get to and from school. But here's what I didn't fully realize until way later. Being normal on the school bus was actually the weird thing to do. When you look at what was going on in the front and in the back, the people who were just sitting there being regular human beings were actually the minority. We were the ones who saw.
Question. Ah, crap. What's a minority?
Let's discuss physics. Shoot the breeze, as you Yanks say. What a lovely evening.
Okay.
Regular human beings were actually the minority. We were the ones who suffered the most on these bus rides because all we wanted was peace. But unfortunately, when you got World War II happening behind you and the Secret Service in front of you, that was impossible. And when I say World War II is happening behind me, you may ask what I mean by that. You'll understand very soon because now we gotta...
Back of the bus. Oh god. So glad there's no break.
talk about the back of the bus. Now I want you to do something for me right now. Close your eyes and picture what happens in the back of the school bus. Take a few seconds. I'll wait. What did you see? Smoke? Flames? Screaming? Crying? Whatever you saw, it's probably accurate. But the fact that you can even picture what the back of the bus looks like just shows how crazy this section was.
Nah, he went door dashing.
The kids in the back weren't bad people. Okay, maybe sometimes they were. That might be a lie. But they just did not think the same as the rest of us.
She's a back of the bus kid. If you couldn't tell. She's a back of the bus kid.
Bro, you know I was shaking my buns in that.
Yeah.
You should delete that.
No.
I don't know if there was free caffeine hidden somewhere back there or what, but it was always pure chaos. And you may ask yourself why the back of the bus was so different from everywhere else. And it was simply because this was the furthest point away from the driver. So this basically meant no one had any idea what you were doing or saying. Yeah, sure, the bus driver has mirrors to look back there, but at least in my case, my bus driver had bad eyes, so they probably couldn't even see that far back. Now that I think about it, why was someone with bad eyesight driving a bunch of kids around to school every day? How did he even pass the test? Whatever. Anyways, I know I said I was a middle of the bus kid, but that was when I matured a little bit, because before that point, I myself was a back of the bus kid. And this means I know firsthand what happens back there. I'm talking cooking food, breaking windows, riding on the seats, anything you can imagine, it probably happened. So I have some crazy stories about kids in the back of the bus that you would not believe. So if you're a back of the bus kid watching this, learn from me. Please stop. But here's the thing, splitting the bus into front, middle, and back is really only part of the picture, because inside those sections, there were specific types of people, characters, the same characters that appeared on every bus, in every school, in every city. Let's start with the one who plays music. This person mainly lived in the back section, but their presence affected the entire bus, because although playing music usually isn't a big deal, for some reason, there was always a kid who would play it out loud. Why would they do that, you may ask? That's a great question. This person would hop on the bus at 7 in the morning, and they're playing Drip Too Hard by Lil Baby. Don't get me wrong, I like that song, but it's 7 in the morning. Let's listen to that song at lunch. Not now. If you're gonna play anything at this time, play elevator music or something. I always wondered if this person played their music out loud because they didn't care if they were bothering anyone, or if it was because they actually thought other people wanted to hear their music. Newsflash, no one did. If there's someone like this on your school bus, do them a favor and buy them some headphones. They won't actually use them, but at least they'll get the message. But recently, I've realized something about myself. I will go so far out of my way to avoid talking to people. Like, I'll choose the self-checkout even if the line is longer. I'll text people instead of calling. So when I need to actually book a doctor's appointment, my brain is always just like,
I'm gonna avoid this as long as possible.
But one time, when I needed to book an appointment, my mom went,
Tyler, did you finally book that doctor's appointment yet?
and she's totally expecting me to say no. But I tell her I did, because I found a way to avoid talking to a human and still book it. What am I talking about? ZocDoc, today's video sponsor. ZocDoc is a free website. Of course, you're gonna save your seat for your friend. Totally fine.
God.
You don't want to end up being next to someone who's gonna make for same-day appointments. So don't wait around to get the healthcare you need. Visit
Sorry.
ZocDoc today using my link, and also linked in the description. And find the doctor that's right for you. Thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this video.
Bye-bye.
Now let's get back into it. Obviously, you did not want to sit next to this type of person. So you try going somewhere else on the bus. The only problem is there's not many seats left. So you try sitting next to a random person, but they go,
Ooh, sorry. I'm saving this seat for my friend.
to be fair, I understood these types of people. When you get on that bus, you want to talk to your homies. So of course, you're going to save your seat for your friend. Totally fine. You don't want to end up being next to someone who's going to make the next 40 minutes of your life horrible. I get it. But the way these people executed the seat saving is where I have a problem. They would get on the bus, drop into into their seat and immediately spread across both spots in a way that physically communicated, this seat is not available.
Yep.
Backpack on the seat, arms and legs stretched out, and if you made eye contact with them, you could tell by the look in their eyes that they were thinking, there is no way you're sitting here. And at first, that was fine. You respect the process, you keep walking and look for somewhere else to sit. But then the bus starts filling up, and the seat saver is still holding that spot. Bus hits 60% full, still holding the spot. 70%.
What are you cooking? Avon. Avon.
Bro, I'm trying to dance.
What are you cooking?
Food.
What kind of food?
None of your business.
Spaghetti?
No.
I don't know, man. Cheese.
And still doing it. 80% capacity, and now you're one of the last few people walking the aisle looking for an open seat, and your options have gotten bad really fast. So you look at the seat saver, and they look back at you and are like, don't even think about it. The bus could quite literally be full, no other seats left, and they still wouldn't let you sit down. So when they don't let you sit there, you just have to go, oh, no problem, I'll just go stand on the roof. Like, that's basically your only option left. They would genuinely rather have you do that than take their seat. But there's always usually at least one seat left open, and it's usually next to the person in this next category, the heavy sleeper. I would never judge anyone for being in this category. I have been in it a couple times myself.
I have fell asleep on the bus like 5 times this year. So, yeah. I'm definitely one of those seat sleepers.
You were forced to wake up at what should not be a legal hour for a kid to have to wake up. You somehow got dressed, found your stuff, walked outside in the cold, and got on a moving vehicle. But your body's telling you, no. We're not ready to fully wake up yet. We need 30 more minutes of rest. So when these people would get on the bus, they were fully asleep before the doors even closed. Head against the window, mouth slightly open, completely gone. Now the reason I said this person would usually have an open seat next to them was because they were a very risky person to sit next to on the bus. It would always go one of two ways. Either they didn't bother you at all, and it was a pleasant, peaceful ride, or they were a snorer. Not quiet snoring, not subtle, polite, barely there type of snoring. I'm talking your dad in the middle of the night after a long day of work, snoring. If you weren't sitting there right next to them, you would think it was the sound of someone trying to start a lawnmower, and that made sitting next to them miserable. There was a kid on my bus that would snore every day, literally every day, and after a while, it just became background noise for us. Like, we didn't even hear it anymore. I don't even know if he was aware he was snoring every day, but one time, I was forced to sit next to this kid because there were no other seats left open. I thought to myself, okay, this won't be that big of a deal. I'll just put my headphones in and won't hear a thing. Well, I was wrong, because when I sat down next to him, the driver took a sharp turn, and all of a sudden, Sleeping Beauty had his head laying on my shoulder, and I had no idea what to do. Do I wake him up? Is that rude? He's basically screaming, snoring directly in my ear at this point, but I decided to just let him do his thing. But then, I felt my shirt get a little wet, and I looked up to make sure it wasn't raining, and that's when I realized this man was drooling on me. It was right
I am not afraid. I was
Hurry
born
up.
to do this.
I don't give a crap.
right then and there where I just shoved him off. I tried being kind, but I'm sorry. I could not do it anymore. And he woke up for about 2 seconds, went, then he leaned against the window and went right back to sleep. But some people on that bus simply could not afford to sleep. Some people had things to do, important things, things that were supposed to get done the night before, but didn't. You know who I'm talking about. The person who was always rushing to finish their homework. This person was usually super handsome, super tall, and all the girls loved him. Now, am I saying this because I was always this person? Maybe, but anyway, so because this person was me, let me give you a rundown of how every day would go. I'd get home from school and have a bunch of homework I have to do. I'd then look at the homework, decide this homework could wait a little bit. I would then play some video games or hang out with friends, and all of a sudden, it would be 9 o'clock at night and I'd have 0 homework done. But I'm way too tired to get it done now, so I would convince myself that I have enough time to get it done in the morning while on the bus. Sometimes I did have enough time, but other times I had to lock in like it was the 4th quarter of the finals. So I'd wake up and instantly I'm panicking because I remembered I have homework I need to finish in the next hour. And if I don't, I'm gonna be revving up those fryers at McDonald's for a living. So I get on the bus, open my backpack, and I'm writing as fast as possible. Is my handwriting eligible? No. Would I get all the answers right? Usually no. But did I finish before we pulled into that school parking lot? Every single time. Because here's the thing about me that I realized back then, and I still believe now. I was not a regular season player. I was a postseason player. I performed better under pressure than I ever did when I had plenty of time. You give me a whole weekend to do something, and I'll do it on Sunday night. You give me a whole weekend to do something, and I probably won't get it done. But if you give me 40 minutes on a school bus, I will exceed expectations. I cannot get any work done unless I had a genuine threat of failing the class. So this was already super stressful, but nothing made the homework situation harder than having the person directly behind you kicking your seat the entire ride. The seat kicker was a very interesting type of person, to say the least. I'm trying to talk about them without my face getting red because they usually tended to make me very annoyed. Even just thinking about them right now is making me clench my fist. You can't even blame someone for being a seat kicker. They just don't know any better until they turn 5 years old, because at that point, there's no reason to still be a seat kicker. Who raised you? I don't even know if they're aware they're doing it or not, but every few seconds, you would just feel a thump, and I'm trying to do my homework, but then I lose my train of thought because I just got assaulted. This would happen over and over again. And one day, I got completely fed up with it. I don't know if I woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, but one time, I felt my seat get kicked, so I turned around, looked at the guy who did it, and said, Elliot, if you kick the back of my chair again, there will be consequences. I didn't elaborate on what those consequences were, but that made Elliot scared enough to stop doing it. And listen, do I support violence? No. Matter of fact, I probably would have lost if we actually had a fight. But hey, it worked, didn't it? He did stop kicking the back of my seat. So if someone is kicking your seat and they won't stop, just threaten them. Unless it's like a baby kicking the back of your seat, then don't do that. Well, actually, no, don't do that. Now, you would think the school bus needs someone to stop these seat kickers, but unfortunately, that did not exist. But there was one type of person that could have stopped them: the police officer.
Bus assistant.
What? Tyler, you had actual police officers on your bus?
No, I'm not saying we had actual police officers. I'm talking about a student, a completely normal student who had at some point decided they were gonna dedicate their whole lives to making sure no funny business happened on that school bus. Nobody put them in charge. Nobody asked them to volunteer. They didn't have a badge. They just decided one day that they were the law on the bus. These people were obviously part of the front of the bus group. Unlike every other kid.
Hey, Avon, you want to come over here one more time? Okay. Well, she is the police officer on the
These
bus.
students weren't fazed by having to get up at 6:30 in the morning every day, because they came ready with the energy. These kids had an awareness level that was actually kind of impressive if you think about it. They could be sitting anywhere on that bus and they would still know what's happening all around them. Someone in the back starts doing something mildly questionable. The bus officer had already seen it and reported it to the driver. The driver didn't ask for their help, but the thing that's silly about this is, did it actually work? Did the bus become a calmer, more orderly place because of their efforts? Absolutely not. But hey, if it made them feel important, I'm no one to judge. And speaking of people trying to manage a bus full of students, let me take a moment here for the person who is actually in charge of all these kids. The person who showed up every single morning, knowing exactly what they were walking into and did it anyways. The bus driver. I will always have so much respect for the bus driver because
I don't. My bus driver's mean.
need you to actually think about what this job is. You have to wake up early, earlier than the kids, mind you, because you have to actually go get the bus. And let's not act like this thing is easy to drive. A school bus is a vehicle that is roughly the size of a small apartment building. And then you load that vehicle with up to 30 children, some of whom are fine, and some of whom will make you never want to have children yourself. And then you have to actually drive through traffic on real streets while noise and chaos is happening constantly around you that you can't fully ignore, but you also can't fully respond to because you're operating a large motor vehicle and you're responsible for these kids' safety. My mom can't even drive if someone is talking to her from the back seat. If you ask her a question while she's driving, she quite literally will not respond. Not because she's trying to be rude, but because if she does respond, that probably means
What?
she'll have to take her concentration off the road, and we don't want that to happen. I love my mom, but that is just her trying to deal with one person talking to her while she's driving. So imagine multiplying that by 30 in a vehicle where kids are getting up, fighting, and still getting everyone to school without anything terrible happening. And on top of all that, the driver had to stay on schedule. It wasn't just get the kids there alive. They had to get them there alive and on time. If the bus was late, parents complained. If the bus was early, kids missed it, and parents complained about that too. One day, everything is calm, and then the next day, someone brought soup and a Bluetooth speaker, and the back turned into a full dining experience. Sounds like a tough job, right? Surely the bus driver must be getting rewarded very well for this. Well, if you count minimum wage as a reward, then I guess. Like, the bus driver did not make enough money for this job. Whatever they were being paid, it wasn't enough. So you may be saying,
Hey Tyler, if you think bus drivers deserve more money, why don't you give them some?
no. But if you are a bus driver watching this, I will say thank you for your service. But the thing that really pushed the bus driver to their absolute limit, the thing that turned an already difficult job into something requiring a level of patience that most humans simply do not have was the student who was always running late.
Can't say her real name.
Every single bus had one. The kid who, for reasons that went beyond poor time management, could not be ready when the bus showed up. I'm not talking about once in a while on a rough morning, they needed an extra minute of sleep. I'm talking every morning, consistently, like clockwork, late. I had a friend who literally just could not get up early in the morning. No matter how hard he would try, he couldn't do it. And it got to the point where he would set 5 alarm clocks all 1 minute apart in the morning, hoping that would just wake him up. Sometimes it did, but sometimes it didn't. So to give himself the most amount of sleep possible, he created a routine to where he would wake up 3 minutes before the bus arrived to his house. 3 minutes was all the time he had to get up, put clothes on, brush his teeth, go to the bathroom, and get on that bus. I'm not kidding. His alarm went off at 7:02 and the bus pulled up to his house at approximately 7:05. Just 3 minutes to do everything. When I wake up in the morning, it takes me 3 minutes just to convince myself to actually get out of bed. So forget about getting ready on top of that. Obviously, this just isn't sustainable. You can't get ready in 3 minutes every day. So every morning, the bus would pull up, and at 7:05, there would be no sign of my friend. The driver had done this route enough times to know that he was coming, we just had to be patient. And that somewhere between 30 seconds to 2 minutes from now, that front door would fly open, looking like it had been kicked from the inside by someone running at full speed, because that's exactly what happened. And my friend would come out absolutely sprinting to make sure the bus didn't leave him. He was never fully assembled while making that run to the bus. He was always in some stage of still getting ready. One shoe on, holding the other in his hand. He'd have his breakfast in his hand some days. Backpack is wide open with papers flying out all over the place. Hair that had clearly not been touched since he woke up. It was a complete mess. And he was sprinting across his front lawn to the bus, and every single person on that bus would be watching. Like the whole bus would go quiet for a second, because this was our morning show. He'd get on the bus, completely out of breath, drop into the nearest available seat because he did not have the oxygen left to go any further back, and then within about 60 to 90 seconds, he would start putting himself together, putting the shoe on, zipping his backpack, running his hands through his hair. I remember one day where he got on the bus, but right as we took off, he started touching his pockets and looked super nervous. So I was like, "What'd you forget this time?" And he went,
My underwear.
"Oh, that's not a big deal. Why are you so panicked about that?"
Because how am I gonna change in the locker room now with all those people around me?
I don't know what he did end up doing that day in the locker room, but knowing him, he probably figured it out. I respected his ability to maximize how much sleep he got every night. If I could have woke up and made the bus 3 minutes before leaving every morning, I would have done the exact same thing. But unfortunately for me, I always had to give myself about 45 minutes to get ready in the morning. Not because I was doing my hair or making sure I looked good. No, it's because I spent the first 30 minutes on the toilet every morning because my body gave me no other choice. Matter of fact, I still do that every morning. I've just accepted it at this point. But the craziest part about all of this is the fact that the school bus driver never crashed. Like, have you ever heard of or seen a school bus crashing? I sure haven't, which is why, once again, I have to give very big respect to school bus drivers. Because if it was my mom in control of that bus, this would have happened.
School bus drivers.
Don't raise dragons right off the bat. For new players, at the start of the game, don't rush to raise dragons.
Alright, well, that was a good video. Bye!